So, properties of exponents in scientific notation. As we alluded to before, we're going to see some of the rules and properties of exponents and make use of those in something called scientific notation. If we have exponents that are simply multiplied together, what this is saying is y times y times y times y times y to the fifth, times y times y times y times y times y times y to the sixth. So a total of 11 y's multiplied together. That's y to the 11th. What we've done is we've added 5 and 6 to get 11. If we have 2 to the x and 2 to the 3x, well, we don't know what x is, we can still use the same idea and add the exponents and get 2 to the 3x plus x, which is the same thing as 3 plus 1, which is 2 to the 4x. If we have coefficients in front, these are also multiplied together. So 2 times 3 is 6. We have 7 a's multiplied together, and we have one more a multiplied together that gives us a to the 8th. When we're dividing, it's like writing out all 9 of these x's multiplied together, and we can start to cancel them out because x over x is 1, and we're left with x squared. Basically what we're doing is we're taking the 9 and dividing it by the 7 of them, so it becomes 9 minus 7, which means there's only 2 x's left over in the numerator. If we use that same idea here, 3 to the 10th divided by 2 to the 10th, 10 minus 2 is 8, gives me 3 to the 8th. If I do the same thing here, I get b to the 8th divided by b to the 12th. Well, 8 minus 12 is a negative 4. What that negative tells me is, I oftentimes say that means it's in the wrong place. That means that negative tells you it should be in the denominator, and so when you write it that way, you lose the negative. This would be 7 to the negative 2, which is the same thing as 1 over 7 squared, which you could also write as 1 over 49. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Well, why is that? Well, let's think about this n to the 0. There is a 1 that's understood to be written in front. We just don't usually write it. This says we have no n's, we have 0 n's. Well, if I have a 1 times no n's, I just have a 1. Sometimes when we have simplifying expression that is nothing but a negative in the exponent, what we essentially are looking to do is just write it with a positive exponent. As you're practicing, please notice whether or not it says simplify, or it may also say as write with positive exponents only. This is going to be 10 to the third. Now, if you have a negative exponent in the denominator, a minute ago I said it's like it's in the wrong place, and it is. So this becomes y to the fourth over 1, because if you move the y to the negative 4 out of the way, you still have a 1. But we don't usually write our denominators of 1 in the denominator. Using the same idea, this becomes 3 squared, which we could simplify as 9. If we have a negative for a fraction, what that means is both of them are in the wrong place, since it applies to both. So I can take care of the negative first by simply finding the reciprocal or flipping it. And then I can clean it up because this square applies to both numerator and denominator, and I have 49 over 25. If I do the same thing here, I still have a negative. I can find the reciprocal, or I can flip it, and I lose that negative on the exponent. Then I can distribute the exponent. Now, I'm going to cube a negative. Negative times negative is positive times another negative is still a negative. So be careful. If you're squaring a negative or taking an even power of a negative, it becomes a positive. An odd power stays as a negative. So I can rewrite this as z, -5 plus -3 is a -8, which is the same thing as 1 over z to the 8th. Now b, I'm going to slide it over just a little bit so I have enough room. M to the 4th and m to the -5th, if I add those, gives me m to the -1, m to the -3, n to the -2 gives me n to the -5. I can then rewrite this as 1 over m. The n also needs to go to the denominator, and so it's n to the 5th. When I have coefficients in front, I need to multiply those together. 2 times -5 is a -10. X to the -1. 8 minus 3, or 8 plus a -3 is y to the 5th. And I can rewrite this as a -10. I don't move my y because it's a positive exponent, but I do need to move my x down to the bottom. And we don't usually write a 1 exponent. We just leave it understood. If we're multiplying an exponent to an exponent, this is like having 9 of these y to the 5ths. Well, if you have 5 of something and then you multiply that by 9, that means you have 45. So when it's a power to a power, you get to multiply them, and that's y to the 45th. We really don't want to write 45 y's down here. This is 4 to the 28th, and we could multiply 4 by itself 28 times. That would get awfully big. Then we have y to the 18th times y to the 20th. Now these are not exponents. Excuse me, these are not exponents to exponents. These are just multiplied. So that gives me a y to the 38th.